I review the 80-year cycle, the booms and busts we show here, and the inflationary nature, how inflation builds into the summer season, and then we get disinflation in fall, and then deflation in winter. This cycle has repeated throughout history, no exceptions. Mild inflation turns into high inflation, often with wars. Disinflation when new technologies finally move mainstream and bring down the cost of living and goods, and then deflation when the bubbles that come from that. And you always get bubbles in the fall season. So again, nobody should be expecting anything else but winter, anything but deflation ahead, and businesses need to understand what happens in that cycle. And again, we review how cell phones and the internet and many new technologies moved mainstream from about 1994 to 2008 on S-curve, exactly 80 years after cars did, we show in this next graph, between 1914 and 1928. The cycle now is 80 years because that's a human lifetime. And it may be longer than that in the future. We live longer. But that's the cycle now, and that's why everybody missed it. In the 90s, this cycle used to run 50 to 60 years when we did not live as long. So everybody thought we were going to have the Great Depression in the 90s. No, we get the Great Depression this decade. And again, I go into more detail, but for businesses, it's simple. Cash and cash flow are critical. You got to do everything to maximize cash flow, sell off assets you don't need. Focus on segments that you can clearly dominate. The winter season is about getting businesses to focus on what they do best, narrow down to a few competitors in every segment. So if you don't do this now, the economy is going to do it for you more painfully. If you sell off, if you identify segments where you're not dominant, and you can sell that product line to a competitor, you're going to actually get paid for this. And at worst, if you're losing money in some of these segments, you're going to increase your cash flow by cutting those fixed costs and losses. Develop a clear definition of your customers, who you best serve. Focus more and more on your customers, not just your products, lines, and segments. Because again, if you don't have very loyal customers and if you're not the best at what you do, you're going to get that ripped from you. Get mean and lean fast. Cut every expense possible and start with overheads. Fixed overheads is where businesses get the most bloated. Look in your own business at the same thing. You got to look at what causes overheads. You got to look at these things and say, do we really need this anymore? Did we need to have all this stuff? Do we need this extra office space? Make these changes now ahead of time. And if you allocate your cost, as I go through in this, your fixed costs to the product lines that really use them and how they use them, you're going to find out what's profitable and not. And I used to do this at Bain & Company with big companies. I used to do it with every new venture I went into company. You almost always find out that some product lines you thought were profitable were not when you realize that some of them are hogging most of the fixed cost and some of them are not. And some have high contribution margin, we call it. Your sales minus your variable cost of fulfilling it, and some have low. It's your high contribution products. They're going to contribute the most to cash flow in this time and where you should be doing best. Defer major capital expenditures, as we've been saying for years. Don't buy a new warehouse or open up new stores now or get a new office building or anything like that or a whole new technology system unless it's critical to your business. Do this when things are bad, when you can buy these systems or these assets from banks in foreclosures or directly from competitors in trouble. So you need to be looking at which competitors are the weakest now, who are most likely to be in trouble. Any business should be looking and say, what do we want from those companies? What key customers? What key employees? What technology systems? What physical assets? Real estate? All of this sort of stuff. And be ready to pounce when the opportunity comes and have the cash and cash flow to do it. So the same thing. You only want to put money in short-term investments that increase your cash flow. They either increase your sales more than your cost. I mean, for example, if you can get a program on Google where you just pay per click and you know that for so many clicks you're going to get so many sales, you know you're going to make money on that. It's going to generate cash flow. If you can make investments in software that cut your cost more than it costs, you're going to increase your cash flow. But the biggest thing of all, the easiest way to free up capital and build a treasure chest, sell real estate that is not absolutely strategic to your business. Some people need that storefront for their image or whatever. Most people don't need their office. They don't need to own their offices for their image. So sell non-strategic real estate. Leasing is better than buying. I don't think real estate's ever going to go up substantially again. And if so, no more than inflation. And then finally, take a hard look at your employees. Anybody that's weak or questionable, you should cut them now ahead, not only to save costs, but to be nice to them. Allow them to get another job now, because it's going to be very difficult if things fall apart. So again, there's just clear things businesses should be doing. All of these things take time to prepare. I think first, second quarter next year, we're in trouble again. That's what I'm seeing more and more from some of the things we presented here and just the cycles we look at. So it's time for your business, your clients that have businesses, to hunker down, get lean and mean, and get in this cash and cash flow game. Because, man, the world is going to be your oyster if you got cash and cash flow when nobody else does, and the banks are clamming up, not lending, going through foreclosures, and trying to get rid of assets. It's going to be the sale of a century. So again, that's the summary for this month. Time to look at your business clients and their businesses, and I look forward to your questions on Wednesday.